All right, now I'm recording. Okay, see people are still joining. So far so good. Again, thumbs up if you are with me. The chat is monitored. So if anything, I will take a peek from time to time. We will be getting, yep. All right, perfect. So question, why do we have projects in organization? This is something that you will need to know to be able to understand where all these roles fit in. Why do we have a scrum master? Why do we have a business analyst? Why do we have a product owner? Why do we have all those roles? It's because of projects. They play, to some capacity, they play in a role within the project space. The question now is, why do we have projects? Why are projects born? And the simple answer is, we're either solving a problem or they're trying to create an opportunity. So two things. They're solving a problem in an organization or they're creating an opportunity. What does it mean to solve a problem? You know, the software solutions, the applications that you use on your day-to-day basis as an accountant, as a customer service person, whatever it is you use to do your job on a day-to-day basis within a company, it needs to be improved. It needs to work, you know, according to technology standards. It needs to be upgraded if something is not working properly. That's where this fits in. So you're either solving a problem because it's outdated, it's obsolete, it needs to be updated. So upgrades need to happen. So we would have projects. Sometimes as a user, so as somebody who just works within maybe operations or marketing, you go into work, you log in, you do your stuff within applications. Things happen behind the scenes. Sometimes you go in and you find out, oh, they changed the look of this. Now you log in on the left-hand side instead of on the right-hand side. Once you log in, now you see the UI looks different. Oh, you are able to do certain things. All of those things happened behind the scenes without you knowing. A business analyst was involved, a project manager was probably involved, a scrum master, if it's an agile setting. All of those things happen while, you know, you were home doing your thing. Behind the scenes, we call them. Another thing is strategic initiatives. Companies will sit and figure out their roadmap. Where do we want to go in 5 years? Where do we want to go in 10 years? How are we going to get there? What sort of applications, what sort of systems do we need to enable us to get to this point we want to get in terms of the strategic growth? They would figure out that they need to sort of implement a new solution. They need to implement a new system. They need to improve the process that they currently have within the organization. All of these things are why we create projects in companies, or why organizations create projects. Again, process redesign or improving current processes, technology improvements, and the big one is strategic growth, because every company out there, even the non-for-profit companies, they all want to grow, and this is part of their strategic plans. They need to figure out where are we getting to and how do we get there. So that's the simple answer to why we have projects. That takes us to the next place now, is how do you fit in within, you know, the project space? Now we've realized that a project needs to happen because we need to solve a problem, we need to create an opportunity, we need to improve, you know, whatever applications the companies are using. Who is going to do this for them? We need people, right? So that's where we have your project management. That's where project management comes into play. Project management on its own is just the use of specific knowledge, skills, tools to deliver something of value to people, right? What is of value to people? It could be, there are different types of projects that could exist, but for the purpose of what we're talking about, we will focus on software projects, or what we call technology projects, right? And in project management, we have what we call the 3 Ps of project management. There's portfolio, there are programs, and then there's projects. It's almost like, you know, the biggest picture, the middle level, and then the smallest piece. The biggest picture obviously is the portfolio. Think about a portfolio as that one big suitcase where, you know, you're throwing all of the work that you need to do. It's a collection of projects and programs, and really it's that strategic level. So they've determined we want to build something that's going to make us $10 million in 5 years. You have to figure out how we're going to do it. So you have to create all these different programs within, you know, different lines of businesses. That's your portfolio. The next level down would be programs now. And the program is now starting to, you know, a bit more streamlined. So it's a group of different projects that are related. And the goal is to manage, you know, the activities in some way that they all benefit each other. A program would have a clear goal, and each project will really kind of work its way up to a program. So program being the middle level, projects being the smallest level. And this is where a lot of people fit in. You would have people who are program managers, that's very senior. They've been in the industry for at least, you know, 10, 12 plus years. They start to manage different projects. Where a lot of people who are transitioning fit in would be the project level. The project level is always a temporary endeavor that is undertaken to create a product, a service, or a result. Organizations will have many projects ongoing. You know, if you are in marketing, again, going back to my example, you are probably working on some sort of marketing project to upgrade marketing applications. If you are in finance, something is happening there to make sure your software that you're using, SAP, Oracle, whatever it is, they need to make sure it's working as it should. If it's outdated, it needs to be replaced. So there are always projects within. You're not talking, kindly mute yourself, please, because it distracts others. Thank you. There are always projects that happens within different lines of businesses. Again, marketing, finance, you know, legal, everybody is working to upgrade whatever applications that they use, because the end goal, think about the strategic picture, they need to get to where they're going. 5-year roadmap, 10-year roadmap. That's why we have projects. An example of a project would be developing a mobile application, creating a payment processing application. For example, PayPal would be an example of a project. If you work in the bank, you know, upgrading an online banking application or implementing one would be an example of a project. If you work in marketing, creating a new campaign to, you know, to attract more customers that are under 18 or over 18 will be an example of a project. So all these different things would happen within organizations. And that's where, you know, me, you, everybody here, that's where we want to be. That's where we are. We are within the project space, right? And on top of the project is obviously somebody who has to manage it. And that's the role of a project manager. Simple definition says a project manager is a professional who organizes, plans, and executes projects while working within things like your budget and schedule. The project manager is in charge of the entire project and handles everything, including the scope, the project team, the resources, and the project. The project manager will also follow what we call the project management lifecycle or the product management lifecycle to execute this project. So if you look at this simple definitions that I've given, a project manager is a leader. So you really have to have that leadership ability to handle initiatives within organizations. When a project is born, minimum, you know, projects would be maybe somewhere around 150, 200K. That's a small size project. Large scale projects will go up to $50 million, $70 million for, you know, different strategic initiatives. So it can go really from anywhere between 150K all the way to 50 million, 70 million, some $100 million. So these are huge budgets that are assigned to creating these initiatives that we're talking about. So as a project manager, you should be able to organize, whatever budget is given to you, whatever team that you're managing. There's going to be a project team. What is the scope of the project? As a project manager, you should be able to handle all of these things, which just goes back to the next point here, where we talk about what are some of the skills a PM should have. Again, as you can see, the leadership is on top of it. Leadership skill is very important. Critical thinking, because you're going to come up with different things and challenges that would happen. So you have to be able to think critically. Communication is very important. You are communicating with different levels of the organization, especially top management level. CEO, CIO, CFO, all of these guys have given you a budget to implement whatever solution that needs to be implemented. So you need to go back to them and report what's going on. What is the status of the project? How are we doing with the time? What is the scope looking like? Are we still within the scope of the project? Are we going out of the scope of the project? All of those things needs to be communicated within, different recurring timelines, most times weekly basis or bi-weekly basis to senior level management. I've just touched on time management, influencing. You're going to have make different decisions, talking to different teams. So you have to be able to influence some of these decisions that has to be made. You have to have some organizational skills, of course, risk management to avert any risk that would come up within the project. And of course, negotiation, because you're speaking to different people, you have to have all the skills. So these are like the top soft skills that I always say a project manager should have. It is not a role that, just because you want to transition, some people say, I'm going to take the PMP and I want to, go be a project manager. Taking a PMP doesn't give you doesn't give you all of these, right? It might teach you certain core things of a PM, but it doesn't teach you leadership skills. So if you haven't played leadership roles in your past or current role, if you haven't been in that capacity, or if you haven't done anything relating to how you can avert risk, I don't know if that's for you. So those are the things you should start to consider when switching. Certain areas would require certain skill sets. So you have to look within yourself and figure out what skill sets do I have? What have I done? And how can I move, some of these things that I've done into the non-technical roles that exist? And of course, there's some technical skills. You would have to learn how to manage budgets and costs, very important. You don't want to mess with people's money, especially leadership money. You need to account for every dollar that you're spending. What are you doing with it? How is it being managed? Are you spending within the assigned budget? Are you going over? Nobody wants somebody who is going over their budget. So all of those skills, you need to be able to manage them. And there are tools that do all of this for a project manager. So you need to be able to use some of those tools as well, which just comes here to using your PM software. There are different PM software that exist. You need to learn, obviously, the project life cycle, what happens from, initiation to the end of it throughout the life cycle. You have to know all of that. And a PM is almost required to be certified. You should have your PMP certification as a project manager. So not only do you get, the soft skills, not only do you do the work, a project manager most times should have your PMP certification. It's just like a stamp to say, I know what I'm doing. I am, and the body has said, I know what I'm doing, basically. Questions before we move on? I'm going to monitor the chat and see if we have questions. If not, I'm going to go to the next slide where we talk about how much do we make as a PM. Do we have questions regarding project manager? Who is a project manager? What skills do you need? Why do we have projects? Just thinking back to, where you work and the type of applications you have used, start to think about what happened, a year ago. Has this software been the same for a year? Has it changed in the last year, in the last 2 years? Those are some of the things you start to think about. And if it has changed, then know that some sort of upgrade has happened and that was a project. I see someone's hand raised. LS, if you want to unmute yourself, I'm happy to take a question very quickly. LS, your hands are raised.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear, yes. How are you? I heard you for a second.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I'm not sure what's happening. Sorry about that. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thank you so much for the information you presented so far. I had a question with regards to project management role. So from what I've researched, in order to do the PMP certification, you need, I think, about 3 years of experience leading projects. How would you advise people who want to transition into project management without that experience of leading projects to maybe it's not something they can do right now. Maybe they have to sort of create some sort of roadmap for themselves to do it in 3 years, which seems like a long time. But what would you say one can be doing in the meantime?
So I think you kind of answered your own question. So a roadmap for sure. And that's why I say a project manager role is not one of those where you have never done this before, you have no prior experience, and you just want to go and start doing it, especially if you want to have this stamp under your belt. So 2 things you can quickly do. I'm just going to quickly answer your question. 2 things you can do. There are roles that don't require you to have the PMP. Other companies will say you must have your PMP. So if you are lucky to find such a role, that's obviously going to build to, the time you need to qualify. That's number 1. Number 2 thing, what are you currently doing in your company, your organization? There are some roles that you will play where you are managing certain initiatives, you're managing certain things. If you are able to articulate that well enough in the application, it would count. So again, when I was speaking about leadership skill, some people, maybe they're in finance and they lead a finance team of 2 or 3 people and they manage, certain initiatives within that finance capacity. If you can translate that to a management of some sort of this initiative, it would apply to your PMP certification points. So I always tell people, how can you craft that story? Is very important. Okay, so you can either rely on what you've done in the past or what you're doing, or find a role that doesn't require the certification and start to build that up within that roadmap that you talked about. All right. I hope that answered your question. I will keep going because got a lot to talk about. How much do we make as a PM? As you can see, this is like, from the PMI survey. It's a project manager body. They kind of collate what people are making and they give the median average. So median meaning it's in the middle. Some people are earning lower, some are earning higher. As a project manager with PMP, this is your average salary, 111,000. This is the most recent survey, by the way. With less than 1 year's experience, 95. Between 1 to 5 years, 104. Between 5 to 10 years, 120. Between 10 to 20 years, 124, and the highest there being 133. So PMP, as you can see, a lot of them are saying PMP between. So with project management, PMP is quite important. You need it. And as you grow, as you implement more projects, you get more experience, you command more money, just like within any field. The more experience, the more pay you are able to command. Again, this being the median, some people are earning way more, some people are in the lower band, but this is like the middle space there. Rotimi, I see you have a question. If you can just put it in the chat. I see your hands are raised. We will try to get to it.
Actually, I put it in the chat. I'm just drawing your attention to that. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Okay, see that. Can you walk us through a project endeavor you have undertaken? You may have missed the beginning part where I talked about different projects that exist. An example of a project would be maybe upgrading your online banking platform within a bank if you work in the banking sector, or creating a payment processing application, for example, PayPal. That would be a project. So it all depends on the capacity that my focus is financial institutions. I've been in the financial institution space for the last decade. So all of my projects I've implemented has been within the financial institution space. So I can talk to projects within that space, but people have different.
Yeah, so if you, I'm sorry for interrupting. If you don't mind, I was thinking maybe you could just walk us through any of the projects that you think that you have done. I mean, going through the details. So
no, I can't do that on this call, unfortunately. That's not why we're here. I'm giving overviews and just really, this is more how can you transition? What is a project? Why do they exist? All of that details. I don't want to go into a detail of a project that I have implemented within this call. All right. Okay, so moving on to the next role that exists between the project space would be business analysis. And again, this is a role that exists. It's a more common role, and a lot of people are able to transition into this role because it is not as senior as the PM, where you are a leader, you are leading the project. As a business analyst, you're almost like a team member, right, within the project space. So different teams would exist. BA being one of them, being one of the roles that would exist within the project space. And what is it? It's the practice of enabling change in organizations. And this is according to the IIBA Babel Guide. And business analysis really just helps to bridge the gap between existing process and growth. So where is the organization today, process-wise? You know, how are they going to change all of these processes and grow in the next, again, 1 year, in the next 5 years, 10 years, based on that strategic roadmap that they have put together? That is business analysis. You are helping to bridge the gap between any existing process and technology solutions that need to happen. So you are almost like a middleman. And who is this business analyst? You are a person who helps organizations to analyze their processes, their products, their services, their systems, to improve the current process and make profitable decisions through, obviously, analysis and insights. So you are helping them make these decisions. You're helping them analyze what they currently do. We call that the current state. You know, what products do they currently have? How can we make it better? You have to have certain things in front of you. Those things are insights. And then once you have the insights, you're able to analyze them to make decisions. A business analyst will also help the organization to document these business processes and assess the business model and whatever technology that needs to be implemented or integrated to get to this future state. So think of a business analyst as that middleman. You're in the middle, you know, there's a current state, we're trying to get to a future state. You have to drive the change to that future state. That's who you are as a business analyst. And if you have seen here, we haven't said or mentioned anything, you know, technology, software. We're just talking processes, services, products, systems. You know, you're improving something. We will not have a business analyst if there's nothing to improve. If everything is perfect, then we don't need you. But we don't live in a perfect world. So we always need somebody to help that organization get from point A in terms of their process or their technology to point B. It's also important to note that as a business analyst, you are not a developer. So you are not the one building the system. You're only helping, you know, document what the process is, what requirements are needed to build the system. A developer is a person who actually builds the system. Some of the simple tasks that a BA would use would be help determine problems and identify the business needs. So what problems exist today? A business can tell you, oh, I need, my car is not working. I need to buy a new one. Instead of asking, oh, okay, how much does a new car cost? You have to ask, what is wrong with the car? Can the problem be fixed? Do we need to buy a part instead of buying a whole car? Things like that are how you determine problems. You just don't jump into a solution for them. You have to determine what the problem is and then figure out, what the best options for solution would be, which is identifying and recommending viable solutions. And how do you do that? You are going to elicit, which is ask questions, get information from who we call stakeholders in the organization. You're going to document this information that you're getting. Different ways to document information exist. We're not going to go into that, but part of what you would do as a business analyst is to ask questions, get the information, document them as requirements, which will be built or which will be implemented as part of the end goal. And again, your role is to help in that successful implementation of this new product or the new service or whatever it is this end goal is. So as a BA, these are some of the high-level tasks that you will play. Within any project setting, be rest assured you're going to use one of these tasks and you're going to fulfill them to help the organization. Simple competencies that I put here. Again, these are skills that you probably already have, you've probably used in your past role or your current role that you play. Analytical thinking, problem solving. Within any role you play, you have to be able to, solve problems for them or think creatively or make certain decisions, These are some skills that people already have. So you have to be able to think analytically, visual thinking. Human beings are visual. So if there's a problem, you have to be able to visualize it and maybe create certain things that will enable stakeholders to see, oh, this is what it looks like, this is where we can get to. Behavioral characteristics, I've put here just things like ethics. You have to be trustworthy because you're dealing with people, you're dealing with stakeholders, right? So they have to trust you. You have to do what you say you're going to do, present whatever documents you're going to present at the time you say you're going to present it. All of these things builds trust, right? You have to be adaptable. You can't be that person that's not flexible within the organization because, again, you are dealing with people. So you have to adapt your behavior to, different types of stakeholders and different personalities. Going back to what I said at the beginning, soft skills, right? Another important one, people would always ask, how do I transition? I've never done this. I always say, what is your current background? What are you currently doing? If you're in the banking sector, you've been in the banking sector for 5 years or 10 years, chances are you know a lot about the banking process. You know what happens when someone starts, comes into the branch, opens up an account, goes through the KYC process, start to do whatever they're doing, applies for loans, applies for a credit card. You understand the workings of a bank. So if you want to transition into being a business analyst, the safest space for you to transition into would be the banking sector because you already have that knowledge of the bank, right? Once you learn about being a business analyst, utilizing this background that you have will be very important. You can't be working in a bank for 10 years and want to get a business analyst job within the aircraft industry or the airspace industry. You have no business knowledge of that industry. So industry knowledge is very important, I always say, once you are thinking of transferring. Communication skill. This is so simple. It's like ABC, but it is very important. You are going to communicate every day, using one of these methods, either verbal, you are in calls, you are in Zoom links or Skype meetings or Teams meeting, you're presenting something to a stakeholder or a team member, you are going to write emails to your team, you are going to send memos, you're going to do all of these things at some capacity every day. So communication skill, you need to have that. Again, this is something you probably already do within your current role that you just need to transfer the knowledge into this new world that you're trying to get into. Interaction skills, again, very important, because as a BA, you would have to use one of these things at some capacity. You would work within a team because you are a team member within the project space, right? You are going to work within, you're going to work with a developer, you're going to work with a tester, you're going to work with your project manager, your BA manager. You are working in a team setting. You will at some point facilitate meetings like this to gather information from your stakeholders. So that interaction skill is there. You can't run away from it. And then tools and technology. If you have worked in any corporate setting, at some point, you would obviously have used office tools like MS Suite, Outlook, Word, PowerPoint, Excel, simple technology tools like that. Every organization uses them. So you can transfer all of that into this current role. You would have to learn how to use some of the business analysis tools that will exist, such as Jira, Confluence, Visio, some of the tools that a BA would use. That needs to be learned. And then, of course, communication tools, I just touched on that as well. So these are some of the common tools that you would use as a BA. And again, you've probably used some of them in your current role or in your past role. So they are transferable. All right, that wraps it up for myself. I'm gonna look at the questions and see if I have any. Is business analysis same as data analysis? A simple answer is yes. Some companies would call a data analyst a business analyst. So a business analyst is an umbrella, I always say, of different roles that can exist. Some would be data analysis, some would be enterprise analysis, some could be product analysts or product owners, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes now. Management consultant. So the term business analysis, I find, is very broad, right? But as a data analyst, what you're focusing on is helping organizations make decisions utilizing data. So as a data analyst, you have to have some sort of data background. You have to be able to use those data presentation tools to present information to stakeholders. So similar, but this is very unique. A data analyst is very unique. It's a very siloed role. You're working with the data, you're presenting information, you're making decisions based on the data that exists within the organization. Whereas a business analyst is more, on the broader scale. PMP and Prince 2 certification. Victor, do you want to take that one?
Oh, I don't know much about the Prince 2 certification. I do know.
I think Prince 2 is UK based, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's something that's very common in the UK. I'm not sure if we have that here.
Prince 2
is UK based. Yeah, I thought
it's not relevant here in North America, so don't bother, waste your time.
Yeah, I thought so. All right, everyone agrees Prince 2 is UK based. Okay, what's the difference between business analyst and systems analyst? Very good question. As a business analyst, you are really dealing with the business. So you need to, again, all of these skills that I've talked about, you need to be able to understand the business and speak the business terms. So again, business knowledge. If they're talking, using certain language or certain jargons within their industry, as a business analyst, you should understand what they're saying. Whereas a systems analyst now is taking the information that this business analyst has provided and translating that into system requirements. So a business, and as a pure BA, you don't need to be working with any systems. As a matter of fact, some organizations will not give you access to systems or databases. So there's a very fine line. Whereas some organizations will call them business systems analysts. So business systems analysts, you will talk to the business, get information from them, translate that information now into system language. And then the developers pick up that system information and start to build upon. So some companies will have pure BA because they need somebody who can really interact with the business stakeholders. They don't want someone who is too technical that can't speak pure business terms. So it all depends on where you land and what the company is looking for. Some want a pure business focused person, someone who has a blend of both backgrounds. So who is a bit technical, that can translate information into the system knowledge, system requirements, and also speak to the business. So it all depends on the two. But the difference really is a systems person should have access to databases and be able to interpret business requirements into systems requirements. Okay. All right. I think I've answered some questions. We'll keep answering questions as we go along, but the next on the agenda is Mr. Victor. So you want to quickly introduce yourself and just take it on from here.
Absolutely. Yes, I will, and I'll use, as part of my introduction, will be part of my my talk. I guess, how much time do I have? So make sure I'm respectful and cognizant of that.
I would say I know I went over, so I anticipate you're probably going to go over to 20 minutes.
Okay, 15, I'll try and keep it
20 minutes.
Okay. All right. So yeah, we can go to the next slide so I'm not staring on myself. Thank you. So yes, my name is Victor.
Introduce yourself.
Yes, my name is Victor, and I have been in this profession, I think, for about nine to 10 years. You know, I'm a bit of a mixed bag in the sense that my journey actually started as a business analyst with one of the banks downtown Toronto, and now it's evolved to where I'm at now. And I use the word evolved to really articulate the fact that everything is an evolution, right? You guys are here because you want to evolve your role. You want to evolve some of your thinking. You have to be in a constant state of evolution in this role, right? Technology, Black technology is almost like the new sexy, right? In a sense where everybody's talking about it. A lot of people want to get into it. There's a lot of, attention around technology. For those of us that grew up in Nigeria, remember when you're growing up, you ask your parents to say, hey, you need to be a doctor, an engineer, an architect. There are a couple of other ones, but they're like 5.
A lawyer.
A lawyer, yes, a lawyer, right? And those are the ones that you had to aspire to do and really hope and pray that you could pass those hard exams to be able to do that. Well, again, there's been an evolution that has changed, right? You can do pretty well in technology today and not work as many hours as some of the other professions, right? So there are more opportunities for you to make a bigger imprint in your life and the life of your family by investing in yourself through technology. So as I said, I started as in business analysis, and to the gentleman that asked a question about the details around the project, between myself, Boomer, and Kes, I'm sure we can reach out to you after and provide an example. But at the very high level, it's just that back in the day, it was your initiation, it's your planning, it's your execution, it's your monitoring, and it's your closure, right? A project starts and ends, right? So we would write these, maybe 100-page documents called business requirements documents, which some companies still use today, right? And you have an SRD, a solution requirement document. And what would happen is you would get all your requirements from your stakeholders, and you would go away for about a year to build a product or build something for your client. And in that year, you may or may not even talk to your client. You have the requirements. Remember when they say the requirements are now locked down, they can't be changed, right? So you now go in and you would deliver something in a year. But in that year, as a client, as a customer, my needs may have changed, right? So you may be building something that was not necessarily what I want in a year. My needs are constantly changing and evolving. So I don't want to put a timestamp on it, but some time ago, there was a shift in the industry, and people said it was the industry. No, it was actually a shift in the customer. Our customers wanted things faster. Our customers had more, people in front of them, so there was higher competition. So companies needed to pivot quickly in order to get their items to the market. So that's where hence I don't want to call it the birth, but a lot of companies started shifting more towards the agile mindset. And I want to make a distinction here. The agile mindset cannot be compared to the waterfall methodology, because the agile mindset is not a methodology. Boomer is going to go into some of the methodologies under the agile mindset, specifically Scrum. That is a methodology. It's prescriptive. The mindset really is a way of thinking, right? So when you guys have time after this, and if you don't not aware of them, go and just Google the Agile Manifesto. Agile projects are based on the Agile Manifesto, which says, customer interactions over processes and tools, which means I will put my customer first, right? I will do what's best for my customer as opposed to following this really long and convoluted process. Working software over comprehensive documentation. I'm not going to be happy with a 300-page BRD if I don't have something that my client can use. I'm not going to go away for a year and come back and say, here you go. No, I want to give my client something, maybe in the first month, that they can actually use. And we'll get more into that, what that means in terms of the concept of product ownership. And the last one is it's changing, responding to change over following a plan. To the gentleman around, the details around a project, one of the things you have is a project plan. You have your WBS, you're going to break down all the activities, you're going to have a Gantt chart, you're going to have time and budget and everything allocated and say, in the next year, these are the milestones and this is how we're going to do it. Well, we're saying the shift has happened. We will respond to a change as opposed to following that plan. If the client says, I don't want this piece anymore, then as part of putting the client first, we need to pivot, listen to the client and change our plan and not be worried about this long document that has been signed off and sealed, right? So a lot of companies are making that shift, have made that shift to more of an agile mindset, which is a continuous improvement mindset. We will always try to do what's best for the customer, but also try to improve in every iteration. So I'm going to throw this out to the room and you can answer, you can turn on your camera if you want to answer, you can put it in the chat, but I'm going to mention 3 companies and I want you guys to tell me what comes to mind when you hear those names. Kodak, remember the guys that used to take pictures? If you grew up in Nigeria, you most likely had a camera, a Kodak camera that you take the film over to the shop, they'll develop it and in 5 days you have your pictures. Blockbuster. If you came to Canada at some point, you're here now. And even if you're not in Canada, Blockbuster was, a company that you could go to rent videos or, VHS. So I think at some point they went to DVDs. And BlackBerry, right? Those 3 companies, what comes to mind for anybody in the audience? What comes to mind when you hear that? Rotimi, you have your oh, I like that. You're defunct. So we have one defunct. Thank you. Rotimi, you want to go?
Yeah, they're no longer in existence.
They're no longer in existence. Exactly. Busola, what about you? Oh, Busola, I'm not sure your hand was up from the last time, but yeah, we will.
Just gonna see if I can.
Okay, no problem. Stiff-necked.
Stiff-necked.
Okay, I like that. Extinct. Like these, you guys are hitting the nail on the head. These companies relied on history, they thought that they'll be around forever. And what they did not take in consideration was the changing needs of their customer. They were not talking to their customer. Product ownership involves having a vision. Product ownership involves trying to predict what your customer would want. Customers did not want to look at a picture that looked like this and feel it, right? Some people still want it, that's fine. Like some people still want to go to the library and buy a book as opposed to getting an e-reader, right? But people wanted things that were faster. They wanted their pictures the next day, not 5 days. They wanted their pictures on their phone. They wanted more than what those companies were doing. Blockbuster, I remember once I went to Blockbuster maybe 3 or 4 days in the same day because I got the movie, and when I started, I was like, I don't want to watch this. I don't really like this movie, but I really wanted to watch the movie. I went back again, as opposed to on demand. Give me something that it's convenient for me, and in the comfort of my home or wherever I am, I can consume the product that you're offering, right? So, these companies made it a bit difficult for clients with evolving needs. And BlackBerry, we know the story with BlackBerry. Unfortunately, Apple came around, and Apple understood what the client wanted. Apple understood that this whole touch thing seems like something that people would want, right? So let's start to look at that. Let's create something that has that nice gooey feel, that has that nice, makes me feel the warm and fuzzies, right? As opposed to, no, I'm only going to give you this because this is what I think you want. But I'm not going to talk to you. I'm not going to ask you, but I'm going to tell you what I think you want. And that's the key around product ownership, is building the right thing, talking to your customer, creating value, right? Everybody here has a favorite product. One of my favorite products is Spotify. Spotify is a music streaming platform. Why do I like Spotify? Well, as a customer, I love to listen to music. Music, anywhere you go, my family will tell you, there's always music playing in the car, in the washroom, in the kitchen, doesn't matter. There's always music playing. But I like to listen to music on demand, obviously. I want to have access to everything, because I can go from lovers rock to Afro beats to rap or hip hop. I want to be able to do that based on my needs. Spotify figured that out and allowed me to do that. I had Spotify for free for the first year as part of a Rogers deal. By the second year, I started paying for Spotify, and Kes knows this. I am El Cheapo. I do not like to pay. I do not like to pay for Netflix or any of those. I always figure like, how can I get this for free? But they had me as a customer because they provided value for me. What they did within their product management and ownership group is they were talking to their customers. They were listening to their customers. They were soliciting for feedback from their customers to say, hey, what is it you want to see in Spotify? Let's go research and develop that and see if we can actually give that to you. Everybody knows data is very important. I used to go on the Go train before the pandemic. When Spotify first came out, you couldn't download your favorite playlists. 3 months after I started using it, that functionality was there. I loved it. Now I didn't have to use my data on the Go train. Sometimes I like to look at lyrics, and everybody that listens to Afro beats, let's be honest, half of the time we have no idea what they're saying, but we just sing along, right? So I wanted to now say, what exactly are they saying? Spotify now has the lyrics section where you can be listening to a song and the lyrics are there. That for me is keeping up to pace with my evolving needs as a customer. That in a nutshell is product ownership. You own the product. You are accountable for providing value of this product to your customer. But if you're not talking to your customer, then how can you be a product owner? Because your customer is the biggest driving force. All of the economic factors taken away, your customer is your biggest driving force. But also remember, you can't do everything at once that your customer wants. So you as a product owner needs to figure out what's the best thing to do right now. So there comes the concept of prioritization. I have a backlog, and a backlog is just where you gather all the requirements, right? In the agile world, in the scrum world, those requirements are called user stories. But essentially, they're just stating the ask of a user. So when you have your backlog, right, how do you prioritize? What's number one? You only know number one by talking to your customer and working with your development team. But hey, Mr. Customer, what's priority for you now? I'm going to put that at the top of my backlog because that's what you want now. And also remember, to be no worries, we'll definitely connect. But also remember, we're not just about creating value. The company I work for loves to create value, but the company I work for likes to keep the lights on. When you create value through a product, you create loyalty, and loyalty leads to dollars. People are going to come back. Spotify has me. I can't let. If Spotify raised their subscription by $5 every month, it will be tough for me not to continue because I've become so dependent on them. They're providing so much value to me. I can't see myself going any other way. So it will take a really top-notch company to come and kick Spotify off my list of my preferred products. So a product owner, yes, is a visionary, right? And you guys were right. You can't be a visionary if you're extinct. right? And you think about it, like dinosaurs are not here, right? Maybe if dinosaurs maybe were visionaries, maybe they were here, and who knows, maybe we won't be here. Different story, right? But you have to be a visionary. You have to think, what's next? You have to be curious. Like, it's very important. Do not settle for the status quo. When you're a product owner in IT, you own that part of the product. It is your responsibility. You are accountable. Be curious. Understand the product. And somebody mentioned the roadmap. Wrote to me, I think it was you or somebody else that mentioned the roadmap. A roadmap is so important when it comes to the world that we're in, because a roadmap is you saying, the simplest form of a roadmap is a list of things you want to do over the course of time. And you put in a prioritization lens on it, and you break your roadmap into now, next, later. As a product owner, wouldn't it be great if you could create a roadmap for your product and communicate that to your clients and let them know that this is my now. So these are the 5 things that I'm going to do now because this is what you've asked for. This is my next. So that's more like, I'm 50% sure you want this, but you know what? We're going to work on what's the best thing to do right now, which is my now. When we get to that next portion, we can have a more detailed conversation, get those granular requirements, and then your later, well, that's maybe 9 to 12 months down the line. You don't have to spend much time in, but as the visionary, you need to think about that. So some of you guys have cars that have, these computers, right? So I think a year ago, Spotify did not have a particular app, a mobile app or something with their cars, but now they have it. Again, they thought about it where people will have cars or might have smart cars where as soon as they get into the car, they want their phone to sync in and Spotify comes up and starts playing the exact same song that was playing in the house. That is value. That for me, I'm like, whew, all I do is put on the car, and I don't have one of those cars, but I'm just saying. But yeah, that's doctor money. That's not tech money yet. But you want to do that, go be a doctor. But anyways, but just that concept as a client, I'm like, yes, I didn't know I needed it, but they brought it. And I'm like, whoa, how did I do all this time without it? That is key, right? So we'll go through these quickly. Delivers value to the customer and the business. Guys, remember, it's not just the customer. Somebody is paying you at the end of the day. That's the corporation. The corporation needs profits to keep their lights on, the business. So you're not just looking at what's right for the customer, but do the right thing for the customer so those profits will roll back to the business. Tell the product story. So guys, when we're telling a story, don't be too rigid. When you tell a story, your neighbor should be able to understand that story. Take out the technical, be able to tell that story without any technical jargon, because that means your business stakeholders and your clients will understand it and will be able to give you feedback that you can ingest and then take those and Kes talked about BSAs and business analysis, take those and convert those into the system requirements that will feed into your development team. Define success. What does success look like for you as a product owner? Well, as a product owner, success might look like for me is I want to get 10% retention, or I want to increase my loyalty of my customers by 15%. So what does that mean? How do I market this product? How do I make sure it's available? The new features that Spotify is rolling out, how do they make sure that they're available? And look at me now. A lot of you guys that are not using Spotify may go and inquire about Spotify. They have made an ambassador out of me because of the way that they've understood their customer and how I think. Design thinking, I think we'll have to do another session on design thinking. I don't want to undervalue the concept of design thinking. It's very important in the tech world, because design thinking is just, before you go and spend millions on something, you prototype it, you build it out, you've thought about all the different scenarios, you take it on a customer journey, and then you understand it fully before you go and build it. And you fail early, at a minimal cost if it's something that's not going to work. Okay, product owner behavior. Empathy is important. So when taking out the rigidity, empathy is important. Guys, product ownership is not, it's not a science, right? For me, it's more of an art, meaning it's curated. Over time, you get better and better, right? It's empathy is like you're hearing what people are saying. you're actually hearing what people are saying. And how many times, like, you're walking through somebody's in the hallway and they say, hey, how you doing? Somebody says fine, and they just walk on. Fine never means fine, but fine is just a way of people just want to move on. They want to, like, empathy is stop and saying, what do you mean you're fine? Right? Like, you're not smiling, something's going on. You peel back, you dig a little deeper. That's how you get to, like, what is that person feeling? That's how you get to what your customer's feeling and what they need. Inspire squads and leadership. And I know Bruma is going to talk about, teams and, the scrum master role and some of the development teams as well. Like, a squad is just really a group of people that are brought together to deliver a product. And in that squad will be a product owner, the scrum master that Bruma is going to talk about, and your development team. So your developers, your testers, and who? Your business analysts. There's a huge misconception that you don't require business analysts in an agile organization or in an organization that's deploying agile operating models. That is one of the biggest misconceptions. Because if you have a backlog of 100 user stories and you have 30 stakeholders, who is going to go and talk to all those 30 stakeholders to understand what they want in this product? It's not going to be one person. And you shouldn't have two product owners for one product. So you're going to have I call the product owner team. You're going to have a product owner, you're going to have business analysts, you're going to have BSAs supporting the vision of the product via the product owner. Who writes user stories? Everybody in the team writes user stories, not just the product owner, but the product owner is accountable for the user stories. So as you go along this journey, you think about, well, when I go in with all the literature around Agile and Scrum, they never call out the business analyst role. I'll tell you, they haven't evolved, right? And maybe that organization that doesn't understand what the business analyst is one of those organizations that's going to get left behind. So as you think about it, and I know it's tough in this position when you're trying to get in, but try and be, if you can, be a little picky about the organizations that you send your resume into. Look at those organizations, go in a bit detail, because you don't just want to get a job. You want to get a job where you can flourish and do well and build, right? So that's key. Feels empowered to make decisions. A product owner has to be able to make decisions. Why? Because a product owner shouldn't be like, oh, hold on, I need to go talk to my boss, and my boss needs to know. Then how are we being agile? How are we being nimble? How are we doing the best thing for the customer? Product owners should be empowered to make the right decisions. So the right sponsorship should be in place for the product owner. That's where the accountability comes in. Guys, if you get a product owner role, some of the questions you want to ask about, how empowered am I in this role to deliver the value? How empowered am I in this role to deliver this product, right? Because you need to be empowered. You're smart. They hired you for a reason. You are smart. And we'll talk about some of the transferable skills. Embedded in the squad. You guys may hear of this term called co-location, and Bruma obviously knows this very well, is an agile team. An agile team is, before COVID, was always co-located. Why? Think about it. In the water, and I'm not putting out waterfall. Waterfall works very well for companies. But a lot of times when you want to meet with a specialist or a SME, right, what happens? You go to Outlook, you look in their calendar, look in their availability. Oh my goodness, this person is not available to the next 5 days. Okay, so now 5 days you're roadblocked until you meet with this person, or you can't meet them for 5 days. That's a roadblock. That's 5 days where you could have moved this thing further. With an agile team, the reason why you put everybody you need in the same team to deliver is, this is your meeting. I call it the swivel chair concept. There's no Outlook. All I'm doing, I'm turning my chair. I'm like, Kes, as my developer, there's this data element that you need in order to build this. Right now, the fields that it's returning are not accurate. I need to go and update our data element catalog so we have the date in the right format. Boom. Okay, not a problem. Let me know when it's done. That's a 2-minute conversation. That's how you're able to keep up with your clients and your customers, because you are fast, right? As opposed to waiting for 5 days. No, you're doing that in 5 to 10 minutes, right? So that's why you need the product owner embedded as part of your squad and working side by side with the developers. Okay, we can move on. All right, so skills and qualifications.
Actually, Victor, before we move on, it's funny you mentioned, product ownership, the role, product owner and business analyst, and you mentioned that as a real, team, agile team should have a business analyst. I see a lot of organizations today, they would say we're looking for a product owner, and you're looking at the description and it's everything a business analyst should be doing.
Yeah.
Right. And I have students who have interviewed for a business analyst role, but instead they're playing the role of a product owner when they get in there. So why are they doing this? And I actually had this conversation, I think a few days back with a friend, and some teams don't have business analysts. They have a product owner, and things are missing within the project team. Like, how can we avoid this? As someone who is coming into the industry new, for the audience, how can they know, okay, I want a business analyst role, or I want to play a product owner role because I really know enough about this industry, about this business? What are some of the things to look out for?
Great. That's a great point. So we have to educate and we have to inform. Really, that's it. The thing about this, the agile space, is a lot of companies still don't get it. One of your biggest impediments in any agile transformation is leadership not understanding the roles and how transformation actually happens from an agile perspective. Right. So the whole concept, and I think somebody said it about, writing user stories. Think about a user story. Why is it going to be only one person? Because that's the way that person sees it. Yes. You want everybody, because everybody sees things differently. So you have a more well-rounded product if everybody writes user stories. The accountability, exactly. The accountability is still with the product owner. But the team, that's why it's a team, an empowered team that's motivated to deliver. That's the sort of team that you want. Different features. Not one person is going to be thinking of all the new features. It's going to be the entire team. So, because to your point, business analysis and product owners, there is some gray, but they're two distinct roles. They're two distinct roles. For me, the way I look at it is the business analysts, they're almost like behind the scenes. I'll be very honest. They make the product owner look good. Because they have that attention to detail. Like, they'll take a user story, but a user story is just that. As a user, I want to press enter on this system so I can get a field that shows me the addresses for da 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 da. But behind that, developers are going to be like, okay, that's great.
Business rules that should exist.
Right. So behind that, developers are going to ask you for more. Like, okay, there's data that needs to be that needs to be returned. There's this thing that needs to be updated. Like, what about my UI? Who's going to work with the UX team? First of all, I'll take that back. You should have a UXer on your team, and they're listening to conversations and starting to sketch out things. But if you don't, who's going to go to the UX and say, "Hey, we need this sketch, or we need this straw dog diagram. This is what we're looking to do." Right? It's going to be there. And I have played that. I played the BA role, and I played the product owner role, and I've been in that spot where I was even confused in regards to, but as a BA, I'm supposed to be doing this, but you're asking me to do this. Right. So at some point I became the product owner, but it was never clear. Right. And that's the thing, where when you're going to these interviews, it's tough to educate the person that's interviewing you. And I've lost a couple of jobs because somebody said, yes, well, the agile methodology, and not just, I was just like, no, first of all, agile is not a methodology. There are methodologies under agile, and the person didn't like, that's fine. But you got to be true to yourself, but sometimes be true to your pocket. So maybe just hem and haw, when you get there, make the changes. But they're two different, they're very distinct roles. I think the BA is a bit more of a technical. Your product owner role is a vision. It's a visionary role. It's working with the developers as well. But I see the BAs as being in the green room. They're the production. They're making sure that when the product owner goes on stage, everything is set good for them to go. In my humble opinion, the difference.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Okay, so skills, and I'll be quick here. So I went through 1 year in my life where I didn't do anything personal development professionally. And I said, that will never happen again. I remember saying that was one of the most stagnant years of my life from a professional standpoint. So since then, I said, every year I'm going to do 1 or 2 certifications. So I did my PMP because my wife told me, true story. Marv was like, babe, you're going to go do your PMP. I'm like, that exam is the hardest exam out there. The book is this thick. Inputs, outputs, tools, practice, all this stuff, right? So, but I did it, right? And one thing, this has nothing to do with this course, get somebody that's going to push you. Like you need somebody that's going to push you because there's a lot of work, but you need somebody that's going to push you. You need somebody that's going to be your product owner in a sense where they see you and they see the vision for you, right? So that always helps. So my wife saw that. So I did the PMP more, and I think somebody said it, they've changed the requirements. They keep changing them, but at that time it was project contribution. So it was like, list the hours where you contributed to a project. I was like, I never led a project, but I've contributed. So it's easier then. So they've changed it. It's unfortunate, but again, we can have more conversations on how we can get through that. And then after I did my PMP, I did what's called the PMI ACP, because I saw that shift happening. I was like, when the company I'm with right now starts to make that shift to more agile, I want to be ready. So I did my PMI ACP. I did my CSM, my certified Scrum Master. I did my Agile coaching one, and I also did SAFe, Scaled Agile Framework. That is going to be a different conversation. There's a lot to unlock scaling Agile, large organizations. I'm not going to get into it here, and I know I'm running out of time, but I think Kes mentioned this facilitation. If there's one thing I'm going to tell you is watch videos, TED Talks, facilitation, pauses in your conversation. And I haven't done it here today, I do apologize, but pausing for questions, right? Do not, when you're creating your PowerPoint, do not put all the information in a PowerPoint, right? Put your high level remarks. Use your.
Okay.
All right. No problem. Use your appendix for your details, but be precise in your communication. When you are facilitating, lead with poise. Remember, you're there for a reason, right? They're looking to you. Never sell yourself short. If you get up in a room, make sure that you are ready. Prepare. Go to that mirror. Prepare. Rehearse. Because part of this role, product owner, is facilitation. You're facilitating sessions with stakeholders. You're facilitating demos. You're facilitating sprint and Bruce, I'm not going to say too much, but you're facilitating sprint reviews. You're retrospective. I know. I'm taking all the good stuff, right? But
yeah.
Like if there's one thing that, and this cannot really be taught, you really have to get in there yourself, get a few under your belt. Toastmasters. Find your local Toastmasters group, which is where you get in front of people and you just speak, right? They say public speaking is one of the biggest fears. Overcome that fear, right? Try and overcome that fear, because that's one way you can set yourself aside from the rest. Like, oh, that person is a great speaker. I really understood what they're saying. And if you follow that up with a powerful deck that conveys what you're saying even better, look for the low-hanging fruit. No one is saying go learn product ownership in 1 week. No, but look for the things that you can learn now, right? And then really build on those. Ruma is going to talk about the servant leadership. So transferable skills. One of the biggest things, guys, stakeholder management, whether you're project management, most roles you're dealing with somebody, right? You're dealing with somebody where you need something for them. And let's be honest, like if you're really a nice person, this shouldn't be too hard for you, right? Like think about it, like the way you deal with people, empathy, that's stakeholder management. Treat them how you want to be treated, right? So this is a skill that you can get even before you go in there. But a lot of things we do in our personal lives, we can translate. If you have a family, if you're married, in all honesty, you have an agile team. Because you wake up in the morning, you and your wife plan your day. Okay, babe, I'm going to do this. You're going to take the kids here, do this. I'm going to do lunch. That's your planning your day. During the day, you execute on those. At night, you come back and say, okay, let's talk about our day. And you don't do it like formally, but it's okay. Yeah, we got this done. Hey, we didn't move this. We're going to move to tomorrow. Like that's, and we're going to talk about, that's like a retrospective or a review combined. You're looking at your day, how it went. So there are a lot of things that you're doing today as part of your personal life that you can actually utilize in the professional life as part of the agile mindset. Storytelling, we talked about that. Be able to articulate a story. But one thing I'll say is, if you need to spend 2 or 3 hours after your workday to understand a product, to understand a concept, do it. You will be so grateful that you do not go in there and fly in the seat of your pants. I've done it, and it is the worst thing where you think you're ready and questions are asked and you're just like, but you know that there was that last page that you're like, no, it's all right, nobody's going to ask. As when you hear that thought, make sure you read that last page in the event that somebody asks. Simplify processes. Agile, the mindset is we want to simplify. There are 12 Agile principles, and one of them is the art of simplification. Simplify things, break things down. This is also a project management term. This is also waterfall. Break things down. Unofficial WBS. Break it down into chunks of where you can work them. Value stream mapping. Take out the inefficient pieces. Make it as valuable as possible. Consolidate that process. Leadership. Most of us are family people, have brothers, have siblings. Leadership happens over time. But when you're going in there, don't say that, oh, I'm a product owner, but there's a product manager on top of me, there's an AVP. Consider yourself the leader. Think it, and then you will act it. And we talked about empathy, detail-oriented. This is huge, but if you're a product owner that has a good set of BAs with your team, well, you're good, you're covered. But also we want to have attention.
Look good.
Yeah, they do. I'm not going to lie. And technical prowess, and from a sense where be curious about the application. Go talk to the developer and say, hey, is there a sandbox environment that I could like pretty much day one, if you start in one of these roles, is you've now been put on this product, right? Go talk to your developers and say, hey, can I see how this product works? Can I see how this tool works? Is there a sandbox environment that you can run a couple of things for me? Go talk to your QA team. Hey, are you guys running any tests? Can I see how you're running those tests? Be curious. Be curious. Ask those. Those are good things for you to ask going into the role, but always be curious. How much can a product owner make per annum? Guys, I'll give you a range, because every company is different. Every company has different bands. We don't have time to talk about product management versus product ownership. They're two different things. Your product manager talks more about your ROI in terms of the budget for the product, how long the product is, the life cycle for the product, and all those other things. So sometimes in the larger organizations, a product owner may report into a product manager. Again, from a career path progression, that's a next step, but we don't have time to talk about that. I'm sure we'll have more of these sessions, but really what I've seen is, and it's similar to it's that 75 to, I think the highest spectrum is maybe like 125, but again, every company is different. Yeah, every company is different, but remember, it's the way you sell yourself, it's the way you articulate, it's your preparation. A lot of those things will actually factor into when you're negotiating your salary. And this is always tough to say, like, try not to accept the first offer, right? Just sort of know what your wiggle room is. And if you feel you're worth more and you're bringing more to the table, then really, again, it's how you ask for it, but you owe it to yourself to say, well, I was looking more in this range. Is this something that's right? So it's really the way you ask.
And that's something that I always tell, my students, I tell everybody, you cannot take what is thrown at you the first time around, because chances are they're lowballing you. Actually, they are lowballing you with the first offer that comes your way. So if you know your worth, you should be ready to, ask for something extra. Always ask for something extra. But before we leave you, Victor, there's a question here. CSM, PCM, and SSM, which is highly recognized and needed in an enterprise. If you want to quickly answer that one, and we'll move on to.
So what was the first one? P.
It says
the professional.
PSM.
The professional
CSM,
Scrum Master.
PSM, and SSM.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So at that point, we're looking more at the difference between the providers, right? Scrum.org versus Scrum Alliance, and I've forgotten what the third one, right? So it's really.
So maybe Brume can take that one actually.
Yeah, Brume, I'll leave that to you. And one last thing I'll say to you guys, and I wrote it down here, is when you're looking, two of the biggest fields right now is cybersecurity and, in my opinion, cybersecurity and supply chain, right? So these are industries that are going to be around for a long time, and they're hiring because they're also changing the way we work. We've suffered from supply chain issues as a result of the pandemic. So a lot of these companies are still trying to catch up. So when you're applying yourself, look for some of those companies that do that, because those are companies that are going to be around for a long time and will have a natural evolution of their product and processes. Okay. So that's it for me.
Companies within the supply chain and cybersecurity will definitely be hiring. That's your input. So guys, take note of that. All right. Thank you so much, Victor. I'm sure everyone learns a thing or two. I know I did. So thank you. Before we go into general questions and answer, Brume, I know we have taken all of your time, but I will give you time to still go through your slides and deliver whatever you need to deliver. So if you want to introduce yourself and take it up, I'm happy to help you go through the slides.
Okay, I will still take my time, by the way, Kes. Just to let you know, right? But I think listeners will find my my presentation interesting because I'll focus a lot on the how to, right? So before I introduce myself, right, I'll just introduce my wife. Okay. We got married in 2014. Then I was in the oil and gas industry, jumping up and down from country to country. And so it was difficult for her to work, right? So I married her as a professional and basically kept her at home, okay? But we moved here to Canada, right? And today we're doing the same thing, okay? So I'm a practicing Scrum Master and she's a practicing Scrum Master. The purpose of telling this story is to let you guys know that you can do it, okay? The roadmap is there. A lot of us have passed through the same path. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. All you have to do, as one of the Nigerian aspirants would say, is to copy what somebody has done and just do it. There's no need to do something new, right? So I urge you to listen attentively, okay? So my background educationally is geology and civil engineering, right? It has nothing to do with tech whatsoever. This is soil and concrete, okay? And then after doing all of that, for 7 years, I worked in oil and gas industry, okay? Something new, right? I did that for 12 years, right? So after studying to do one thing, I did something else for 12 years, right? After doing that for 12 years, I decided to move to Canada, right? I came here and what I studied for 7 years and did for 12 years, I couldn't, right? So there had to be a transition somewhere, right? I won't go into details of those transitions. It has to be a one-on-one conversation, right? But just to let you know that a career change is possible simply because, as my friend would say, right? If you've worked in an office before, if you've sent emails, if you've communicated with people, with management, with colleagues, then you can be a Scrum Master. You can be an Agile coach. You can transition. Because a lot of the skills that you've used, I'm assuming most people here are trying to change their careers, right? A lot of your skills that you have today, right, are going to come in useful, right? But there are some things that you have to add, right? So let's go to the next slide, right? So this is a quote by Thomas Edison, okay? And the reason why I chose this quote is this, right? There's so many people who have contacted me in my DMs all over the place saying, hey, I have read all the books, I have done everything, and then I started interviewing and I gave up because I couldn't pass interviews, okay? Now, there are 3 words I learned, a few years ago when I took up weight loss, right? I've always struggled with my weight and, I bought some Beachbody course, right? And there were 3 words, right? It's decide, commit, succeed. So you'll be wasting your time on this call if you want to treat this as an option, right? So let me just hear them out and then I'll still consider doing my medical research or I'll consider doing my clinical whatever, or no. If you want to do this, right, you have to decide, right? Then you have to commit and you have to make sure that you succeed. Now, this is possible because people have done it and there's a roadmap, right? I know people that have followed the same roadmap. From the day I started this, I can count people, my friends' wives, my friends, my wife, that have followed the same path and have succeeded. So please listen attentively. And when you start, don't give up. And when you start, don't treat this as an option, right? Now, Victor has given, a broad overview. He mentioned the Agile Manifesto, right? So Agile is an umbrella, right, for a group of iterative practices. What's iterative? What do I mean by this, right? He mentioned waterfall. I don't know if he explained waterfall to you, but it's this. I want to make a phone, okay? We are going to spend a long time deciding how this phone is going to be, the functions, the look and everything. We're going to decide. Then we're going to arrive at a final design. Then we're going to now spend time building it. And then we're going to come out with the final product. So the first time the person that requested for this phone will see it is when you have finished making it, right? Most of the time, the project is out of scope, out of budget. You spend much more time doing it. And at the end, the customer might not like it, right? So at some point, people in the software industry decided, hey, it doesn't make sense to start and finish before the owner of this thing gets to use it. While you are designing, what if the market changes? What if the needs of the company change? What if, at the end of the day, this product doesn't even bring value? Well, we have to be able to fail very early, right? And then change course if we have to, right? And that's where Agile came from, right? Now, within the Agile framework, I don't like to use the word methodology because these are not methodologies, right? Within the Agile framework, you have Crystal, you have test-driven development, you have feature-driven development, you have Kanban, you have lean software development, you have Scrum, you have scaled Agile, right? But most companies use Scrum. Actually, 58% of the companies that work within the Agile space use Scrum, right? So it makes sense if you decide to get into tech, non-technical role, right? You see those roles there. Those roles are the roles of a Scrum team, right? Now, Scrum is very simple. If you read the Scrum guide, it says Scrum is lightweight, difficult to master, easy to understand, right? So the Scrum guide is right now just 13 pages, okay? So you can read it and have an idea, right? But it's difficult to master. Anyway, I don't want to go deep into this, right? But within the Scrum framework, right, there are 11 elements, right? Broken down into roles, events, and artifacts, right? I'm going to focus more on the Scrum Master role. I'll just mention the other two briefly, right? So the Scrum Master is a servant leader, basically who promotes, supports, and teaches Scrum within the Scrum team, right? Now you saw the Scrum team. There's a product owner. Victor has spoken much about the role of the product owner. Developer, right? That's an umbrella term, right? Within the Scrum team, if, for example, you work on a product that involves customer interaction, right? Like a website, you must have designers, right? Those designers are not called designers according to the Scrum guide. They're developers, right? If you have a BA within the team, developer, right? So that term developer, right, is an umbrella term for all the roles within the cross-functional Scrum team. Now, every Scrum team must have all the skill sets that are required to deliver working software, right? Our progress, our performance is measured only by working software, right? So the Scrum Master is somebody who nobody reports to, but is kind of responsible for ensuring that, the Scrum values are lived by the Scrum team, okay? Now, there are many roles and responsibilities, right? But you're responsible to the Scrum team, right? The main thing I'll talk about here, right? You forget the fact that I have all this text here, right? But your main objective as a Scrum Master is to ensure that the team is creating value, that work is flowing. You're removing blockers. Where do blockers come from? Sometimes from within the organization, right? Just think about it. If all the stakeholders had the ability to send work directly to your team, there was no gate. So every day, the VP, the marketing manager, is telling your Scrum team, hey, I want this, I want that, modify the website, do this, do that, right? Your job is to act as a barrier. You protect your Scrum team from all of this. At the same time, make sure that the Scrum team goes through every sprint and make sure that all the events happen. Because if you miss any element of Scrum, you're not doing Scrum, right? So as a Scrum Master, you're kind of like the coach, the manager, the police, the observer, the helper. Your role is all encompassing, right? And when people outside of the team want to understand how the team is performing, they don't go to the product owner, right? His only job is to make sure that the team is working on the most valuable elements that the company or the organization needs at that time, right? They come to you. How is the team feeling? Are there any blockers? Are there gaps? They come to you. So you have to be very observant and very in tune with your job, right? Now, the product owner, what you do for him mainly, right, is to help him understand the need to have a clear vision and a clear goal. Now, developers they code, they work on software, right? So if you tell the developer, code something, they will code it, right? But how do you ensure that they are working on what is most important at that time? And how do you ensure that what he's working on is contributing towards a certain goal, right? So as a Scrum Master, you're going to support the product owner with planning, support with facilitating meetings between himself, stakeholders, third parties. You're going to be a blocker. When I say blocker, right? Because the product owner might also be somebody who is easily influenced by external forces, right? So you have to be very strong in your role as a Scrum Master to make sure that the team is working towards a goal and a vision, right? And most of this, is represented in real life, by a prioritized backlog. You've heard the term backlog many times, okay? And now to the development team or the developers, right? Now, as the Scrum Master, the developers might see you as their manager, okay? This is what happens many times simply because of the fact that the way you present yourself, you're like an authority figure. So the developers see you as a coach, a mentor, sometimes a manager. When the developers want to, go on vacation, they don't talk to any, it's me that they ask. And I'm like, hey, okay, you can go, right? But basically, yes, as a Scrum Master, you are seen as part of the leadership team, right? Which is where your service to the organization also comes in, right? You have to train people outside of the Scrum team to understand what you guys do, because for people outside of the Scrum team, right, they can't understand how we can just give this team autonomy to do what they like. So they it's, as Nigerians say, right, it peppers them to think of a team that is just working, right, self-organizing, cross-functional, and not taking instructions from them, right? So you have to make them understand how your team works, okay? You have to remove the barriers, right? So if your stakeholders feel any kind of way about your team and you're not happy with the way your team is working, then that shows that you are not effectively acting as a bridge between your team and your stakeholders, right? Everybody cannot be happy, but everybody needs to get value from your team. So there has to be constant leading, training, coaching, and making everybody understand how Scrum works. Because remember, most organizations started out waterfall. They had bottlenecks, they had bureaucracies, and they're in different stages of transformation. Mine began in 2018, so we're still relatively new. So there are some things that are strange to some people, right? After so many years, practicing Agile. So you always have to remember, right? When you step into an organization, right, you're not going as a starter, you're going as a manager, a coach, an authority figure. You have to carry that air when you communicate with people. Don't ask, don't beg, and also don't impose, right? But come as a coach, come as a facilitator, come as a manager, just put yourself in all of these shoes and make sure that, you're able to get the respect and trust of everybody in the organization. It sounds easy, but yeah. Anyway, so how do you become a Scrum Master? I'm assuming that everybody here has a university degree at least, right? You need that. It's necessary. I assume you have some sort of work experience, because it's not an entry-level job, unfortunately, right? Some people will accept candidates who are transitioning, okay? They will accept the fact that you're just starting out your journey as a Scrum Master. Some, and they will provide training and a career path for you. But look at most adverts, they ask for 3 to 5 years, right? So it just shows you that they expect some level of experience. Why? Because of the kind of things that you're going to be doing as a Scrum Master, right? So really quickly, the reason why you have strong Scrum and Agile training there, I think Kes and Victor have said this, right? People come to me and say, I have my PSM, I have my CSM, I have my blah, 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 blah. So I've applied for jobs and I can't pass interviews, right? Yes, because there's a huge gap, right? And I'm going to focus on this a lot because this is the most important thing, okay? Why is there a huge gap? Because you are trying to transition to a new career, okay? If you think about where you have been for the past, 4 or 5 years, think about how long it took you to achieve, I'll call it full autonomy. Okay, when I was in the oil and gas industry, we had what we call TTFA, right? TTFA was 5 years, time to full autonomy. In 5 years, we expected that you embodied the job and could take responsibility. Okay, so how can you leave that and come and read one Scrum guide and watch 2 YouTube videos and think you can become a Scrum Master? It's impossible. It is impossible. You can't do it. Okay, so strong Scrum and Agile training, right? I recommend, first of all, that you keep money to invest in yourself. Don't cheap out on this, right? The investment will pay very quickly. In the first month of your first job, right? And maybe 3 months after you invest in yourself, the investment will pay. So I want you to internalize this and think, if I was thinking of buying some $19 Udemy course, forget about it, right? Start keeping in fact, in US dollars, think about 1,500. That is a realistic budget to get this training. A course that is at least, I won't specify time, but gives you theoretical and practical training, involves going through some sort of project, right? And I'll tell you my story here, right? I did a self-paced course on Coursera. It took me 6 months, okay? It was a software product management specialization, right? By University of Alberta, but on Coursera, right? After all of this, right? I knew deep down that I couldn't go and ace an interview. So I brought out my $1,500. Yes, and I attended a 6-week training, right? And 3 interviews later, just 3 interviews later, right? I had offers. Like it was a discussion. Okay, so which offer should we take? This or that, right? Now, the reason why I was able to ace the interviews with confidence was because of the training, right? Because they don't ask you, what is a Scrum Master? What is sprint planning? No, they ask you very practical scenario-based questions. And anybody who's been in this industry is going to know straight up that, hey, man, this person just read a book, or this person has the experience. Now, if you've done the training, you can fool them. When I say you can fool them, right? You know, part of this process at some point is editing your resume, right? To capture your transferable skills and make it seem as if you have the experience, right? But the only thing that will give you internal confidence is the training. So step 1, the very first step is training, right? I'm not going to go through all of the rest here, right? The training is going to take care of all of this. Okay, so let's move ahead. Okay, I think we're missing
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that one after we talk about how much they pay. So
okay, all right. So talking about,
actually, here it is. Go ahead. Just take it on. This is the slide you were looking for, right?
Yes, this is the slide I was looking for, right? So you have your previous skills, you've made a decision to transition, right? And you're wondering how to transition, okay? So this is a more practical example of the first point in the previous slide, right? You have to read, okay? You have to read at least 2 books every month. This is a book I'm reading right now. It's called Inspired, okay? It's blurred, right? It's called Inspired, How to Create Tech Products Customers Love, okay? Now, think about this. You might be trying to become a Scrum Master or product owner or BA, but remember, you're going to be in the tech industry. You're trying to deliver tech products. So you need to have like a broad overview of the industry within which you function. That's where you have to read all of these books, right? They're very important, right? So while you're getting formal training, you have to read books about the industry, written by industry experts, right? Continuously, you have to intentionally get knowledge, right? So read books about Scrum, Agile, you know, products and stuff like that, right? You have to read books about coaching, right? As the Scrum Master, you're a coach. So you have to try to understand what it means to coach people, okay? These are very, 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 very important, right? Now, the third thing that you really, really, really have to do, right, the second thing is get trained. I mentioned get training, right? This is where that money comes in, right? So you have to pay for a course that takes you at least as a minimum through a practical project. Why? Now, I learned Jira, I learned Confluence, I learned Azure DevOps, I learned Trello. Why did I do all this? Because the day you get a job as a Scrum Master, right? Some companies don't even give you time. They say, that's your team, go ahead. That was my case. I said, hey, these are your 3 teams, not even 1 team, these are your 3 teams, you know, that's this product owner, that's that product owner. The only orientation I had was introduction on day 1. Hey guys, the experienced Scrum Master you waited for all these years is finally here.
The Messiah has come.
He's worked in Fortune 500 companies all over the world. He has led organizational change, you know, so he's here now, right? So from day 1, right, a lot of companies expect you to step into those shoes, right? That's the reason why you have to get trained, right? Now, the training I did was 6 weeks intensive. Like, it was officially 2 hours every single day at from 8 to 10 p.m. for 6 weeks, every day. And I was there for those 6 weeks, diligently, religiously. Plus, we had assignments to do, right? So per day was about 4 hours of my time, right, trying to do this. But it gave me confidence from day 1. Like, they ask you questions. Okay, welcome. So how do we do this? And they're looking at you for answers. You can't say, well, I just, no. You have to. Now, alongside training, get a community, right? The community mostly comes from the training that you do. My community right now are the people that I trained with, right? Plus other communities I've joined along the line. But you need basically 3 people in your life, while you undertake this journey, right? You need the people that are beside you. We are all trying to get there, right? Many people on this call, you need those people, right? You need someone who is on top of you, who has just gone through it, right? And will help you, tell you, hey, this is exactly what I did 2 months ago that worked, okay? Then you need a coach and a mentor, like a solid coach and mentor. Most times, it is the person you pay that money to train you, right? You need that person, right? Up till today, I still call the guy that trains. Sometimes I can just call him and I gist with him, ask questions, get insights, find out if there's any other class I can even take, to keep me abreast of what's going on, right? So you need the training, you need the community constantly, right? Sometimes your community will help you for your interviews. Like the coaching I got for interviews was from my community. Oh, you just got a job. How did you do it, right? Now, get experience, okay? This is where it becomes tricky. Get experience means you have to actually work, okay? I know somebody right now who is working as a volunteer Scrum Master just to get experience, right? Because he's not very confident, going out there, right? So he says, hey, let me do this volunteer work first. Let me, build my confidence, whatever works for you. For me, I say, hey, jump in the ocean. That's the best way to learn, right? But you need to get experience. Now it gets tricky here. Why? Because most companies don't want a new person, right? They're looking for experienced Scrum Masters. So this is where, you get help from other people, to to package yourself in such a way that you're able to attract these companies and start working for them, right? If you've gotten proper training, most of the time when you get in there, right? Because like I said, many companies are transitioning, right? If they are very strong, they'll tell you, hey, this is a process, just follow it, no problem. Most of the time, you're going to come in and start making changes, right? From the first day you bring out your jotter, you start jotting an anti-patterns, right? My first day, for example, the Scrum Guide says daily stand-up is 15 minutes, right? 45 minutes stand-up. I say, hey, God don't butter my bread. I've seen something to change from day 1. You understand? So you see things like that, right? Get a coach and a mentor, right? This is very important. You as a Scrum Master, you are a coach and a mentor, right? You cannot coach and mentor people if you have not been coached and mentored, if you don't know what it means to be a coach and a mentor, if you haven't studied about coaching and mentoring, and if you're not experiencing it, right? So coaching and mentorship, right? I'll call it is an industry of its own, but you need somebody, right? You can't work, you need somebody who's gonna, pass knowledge down to you, right? You need somebody who you can call on sometimes when things get difficult, because your first few days, weeks, months might be rough. So you always need that person. Sometimes in the middle of the work day, you might need to call on this, your coach and a mentor. The coach and the mentor, most of the time, is gotten from step 2, really. You know, so it's not like you need to go find a new person, right? Kes can be your coach and your mentor. Victor can be your coach and your mentor, right? I don't have an official coaching and mentoring platform, but I coach and mentor people, and I'm coached and mentored as well. So sometimes if you ask me a question that is too big for me, I'll say, hey, wait first, let me think about it a bit more, right? And then I call my coach and my mentor, right? Remember, we transitioned, so it takes a long time for you to achieve what I call full autonomy, okay? Now, apart from all these things I mentioned, right? I mentioned reading books, so you have to watch videos, like you have to be in it. You know, you can't take it as a training, you know, you can't take it like a university degree, you know, that you just studied, you know, and then you passed and then you drop it, right? You have to be in it, constantly evolve, right? Now, the good news is, now that we're on this slide, right? The good news is, like I said before, the role of the Scrum Master or Product Owner or BA, these are not entry-level roles, right? These are experienced positions, okay? They expect you to come with a particular skill set and they will compensate you for it, right? Now, don't limit yourself to the figures that you see here, right? Kes mentioned something about shortchanging yourself, right? So this is what they'll offer you when you first interview. They'll say, hey, our offer is 84K, right? Look at the end of the scale. That is what you should kind of ask for a start. Forget about the fact that you have just trained, that you have just freshly packaged yourself. Ask for the top of the range. Don't be scared to do it. They have a budget for this, and most of the time there's a very wide range, right? So ask for the top, and you know, and be very strong and be very confident about it. Don't see yourself as, you know, a fresher, you know, and don't accept something below what you have said you are worth on paper, right? Is all I will tell you, right? But I'll tell you, you know, Scrum pays very highly, and these are for full-time roles, right? As a contractor, you're going to get contacted by many recruitment agencies. You know, I don't have that here, right? But the minimum you should ever ask from any recruiter is $80 per hour if you aren't sure of yourself, okay? Personally, I'll never accept less than $95 per hour, never, right? I tend more to, you know, asking for things like 120, and if we negotiate, maybe I'll accept $100 per hour, right? But that's how much a company can pay you because of the value that they know you can bring to the organization, right? So I'll tell you something, right? You know, forwards, you can do it. If you've already started and you failed along the way, no problem. You can start afresh. You can begin again, right? And something we haven't mentioned here is the timeline, okay? People like to hear timelines. From the day you decide to become a Scrum Master to the day you sit in front of a company, a recruiting manager, and negotiate your salary after you get the offer can be as little as 4 months, right? Can be as little as 3 months. It can be as much as 6 months, it can be a year. So it depends on you and what you decide, right? My only advice is don't take it as an option, right? If you've decided, follow those steps until you succeed and you land the job. Thank you.
Sorry, I needed to mute. Did I hear you say thank you? You're done?
Yes, I said thank you.
All right. Wow. Thank you. That was amazing. I don't know if anyone has any quick questions for Brume. We will be going into Q&A in a second. So if you do, you can start to put them down and we will start tackling questions. I know we are fast spent, but I think it was definitely information that was valuable. I for sure know that I got something, and I've been in the industry. So if you are new, then I'm pretty sure all of this information was valuable to you. Before we, go into Q&A, just wanted to introduce what we do. We do have a coaching platform, and our coaching platform over, the course of this information session. We've talked about all these different things you should do, how you need to, Brume stressed on mentorship, he's stressed on coaching, he's stressed on training. We offer all of that. So if you think this is something you want to do, you are trying to transition, maybe you've taken a training before and it hasn't worked out, or you've been thinking of getting, one of these roles or getting into one of these roles, I think this is the time for you to do that. There would be a link that would be posted on the chat in a second. Just click on that link, show your interest. What do you want to do? And if you are showing interest, I want you to have an idea of what you want to do. Going back to what Brume said at the beginning, you should have researched the path you want to follow. So do you want to be a business analyst based on what you feel you can do or what you've been doing? Do you want to be a product owner? Do you want to be a scrum master? Look through that path and then say, okay, this is where I want to go. This is the path I want to follow. Fill out that interest form and we'll definitely contact you for more. But just quickly introducing what we do to you, all of the stuff that you heard today, we offer it to people. We have helped so many people this year alone transition, and a lot of them are already, they're making the big bucks. The funny thing about this role is I always tell people the hardest hurdle to jump is getting in. Once you get in and you are someone who has, that learning, you have the intuition to learn, you want to know more, you will thrive. Once you start to do every day, you figure out, okay, what are these teams working on? Who is the developer? What does the sandbox look like Miata said? You will thrive. The biggest hurdle is getting in. So if you think this is what you want to do, the interest form should be on now. I'm just gonna make sure, is it being posted? Jane, if you can post the interest form so that people can show their interest and we can reach out to them. But yes, we help all of this. Myself, Brume, Victor, who also spoke. So fill out the interest form and we'll reach out to you with all of the information that you will need to get started. Like I said, just putting out what we do. We offer training in business analysis, Scrum Master, product ownership. We also help with career coaching for immigrants. This is something that a lot of people have taken advantage of this year and have gotten a lot of roles within the Canadian space. This year alone, we have created over $3 million for new immigrants. And the majority being in Canada, but we have seen some success stories in the UK and some in the US as well. For our career coaching candidates, we have seen roles with over 150K, 130K, 110. Again, going back to what Brume mentioned, what we do here is make sure you position yourself as a professional. You have the experience, you've worked in industries, it shouldn't just go to waste. So we help you position yourself. Our unicorn client this year was actually a lady who's making currently over 250K a year. Testimonials are on our YouTube page. They're live video testimonials. If you want to watch them, I can't put them here. Feel free to go in, look through, see what people like you have done. Some of them came into the country 2 months, 3 months, 1 year. It all depends on your path. I have a testimonial on YouTube. Her journey took her 6 weeks. 6 weeks. But this is someone who was literally putting in her blood, sweat, and tears, crying sometimes on calls, and I'm tired, I don't want to do this. But it worked out for her at the end of the day. So I always tell people it is up to you and the dedication that you want to put into this. So feel free to search us on YouTube and you will see some of those testimonials I talked about. And don't forget to show your interest with the form. There will be a discount, so I'm going to put that on the chat. Actually, it's on here. Anybody who is on the call right now and is putting any interest in the interest form, the discount will be New Year 30. So make sure you put that in. Otherwise, I won't know if you're on the call or not. So put this discount, and then when we're reaching out to you, we will make sure we honor this discount for you. All right. Before I let everyone go, or I know it's been 2 hours, so thank you for your time. I wanted to say thank you for joining. Thank you for registering, showing interest. You just showing interest means that this is something you have thought about, something you might want to transition into. As long as that thought is in your mind, it's in your heart, I always tell people, do it. The time is now. If it doesn't work today, keep pushing. Eventually you would see results, and all of the struggles would be like a distant memory. So put in your best, and I always say, let God do the rest, right? Having said that, I want to thank the speakers, Victor and Brume. You guys were awesome. I learned a lot, and I'm sure everybody on the call has learned a thing or two. Your wealth of experience, Brume, you come from a totally different background, but you're thriving today as a Scrum Master. Victor has been in the space, and he literally explained his transition, starting off as a business analyst, and just, having that agile mindset and transitioning through different roles and getting certifications along the way. I always say you cannot be shy to spend money on yourself. You need to do it to see growth. So thank you both. Again, I appreciate you spending 2 hours already of your Saturday with us, answering questions and taking questions from the audience. All right, having said that, I see some hands are up. We'll get into question and answer. If you want to, if you feel you want to drop off at this point, that's fine. We'll just take the next maybe 10, 15 minutes, answer some questions, and then we'll call it a day. So thank you again for everything and for your time, Victor and Brume. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome, Chris. I see there's a question here that somebody at Nkiru asked before I started talking, and it's about which one is more lucrative and can get you working on enterprise. She says PSM, yes. CSM, I guess, and SSM, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is my personal opinion. Please don't quote me anywhere, right? But simply because the Scrum framework, the origins of Scrum, right, can be traced back to Ken Schwaber and Jeff Sutherland, right? Now you have scrum.org and you have Scrum Alliance, right? Scrum Alliance is Jeff Sutherland, scrum.org is Ken Schwaber, PSM, CSM. Outside of those two, I won't even waste my time on any other Scrum certification. If you want a Scrum Master certification, I wouldn't waste my time. If you look at all the job postings, they always specify PSM or equivalent or CSM or equivalent. I don't see any other certifications requested for. So for me, these two people, they're the ones who I would say originated the Scrum framework. They are the ones who maintain the Scrum Guide. I will get my certifications from them and no one else. Okay. This is my opinion, right? So when I see people telling me, hey, I have a certification and it's from Scrum Study, I say, please, can you kindly go and get your PSM1 or CSM? Because that is what recruiters actually look for.
Okay, thank you for that. I see Roland, you have your hands up. You want to quickly ask a question and we'll be happy to tackle it.
Yes, I do. Good afternoon. So as a young science graduate in his early 20s, what are the opportunities open for me? The reason why I ask is because the majority of the positions, involve 3 to 5 years of experience, or just coming out of university. I want to know what are the opportunities that I can look at.
So you're a science graduate and you're looking to transition into these non-technical roles?
Yes.
Okay, Victor, you want to take that one?
Sure. So Roland, at this point, the world is your oyster, but what I'll be more tactical in my response and say there are a lot of companies that have new grad programs and new graduate programs where you can actually get your feet wet, right? And a lot of people have started their careers and stayed long at different institutions through those programs. So at my company, there's one called the NGT program where you apply and you're actually able to do a rotation where you go through various parts of the company and you might learn supply chain, you might learn cybersecurity, you might learn e-commerce and digital. So And then from there, you can sort of make the decision on where you actually want to specialize in. But I think if you listen to everything that I said and Brume said in terms of getting into the industry, you could just follow those same steps. But if you want to get in and just, not necessarily do it either Scrum or anything directly, but you just want to get into a company and then start to get a feel around because you're not exactly sure what it is you want to do. Like all the banks have co-op and NGT programs. A lot of the big retailers have those as well. As a young strapping young man, those that might be a good option for me from my perspective.
I would also like to add to that. Thanks, Victor. That think about what you enjoy. Are you someone who likes leading? Do you like being in front of people, communicating, facilitating? If you enjoy all of that, then some of these roles that we've talked about today would definitely apply. And then again, it's just following the roadmap, taking a training, understanding what the role is about, and then getting your foot in through like a internship type position or an entry-level type positions. And because you're a young recent grad, I'm sure companies would be willing to take you on and help you through your growth parts. Okay.
Yeah. 1 second, Roland. What did you study?
I studied chemistry.
Chemistry.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So my answer will be slightly different from Victor's and Kes's, right? Different and similar at the same time, right? So I'll speak from my own perspective, right? The way I approach things is way different. And some people think that I waste time doing some things, right? One of the things I have done, right, is this. So when I finished school, I'm one of those people who got a job straight out of school. Like I have no gaps on my resume, right? And I got a very good job at the start. So there was no point doing a master's degree, right? I began to think about furthering my education when I moved to Canada, right? So I took up a diploma, right? I'm learning how to be a computer programmer, not to program, but just to speak their language, right? 2 years might seem like a waste of time just to learn their language, right? But it has helped me a lot. It's sleepless nights, trust me, right? But if I were in my 20s, right, and trying to get into tech, personally, I would go technical. Personally, right? It doesn't mean you can't, become a business analyst. You can actually become a business analyst, right? But like the more management inclined roles, like the scrum master or the agile coach, maybe not. The other things you can do here, you can be a product owner. Yes, you can be a BA, non-technical, very, very well, right? Scrum master, maybe not. You'd like to see some years of experience just because of the nature of the role. Agile coach, definitely not now, right? So your easiest point of entry to tech right now will be BA or PO. PO is a bit technical too, right? Now, if you want to go technical, you can do user interaction, user experience, right? Or you can go ahead and learn a programming language, join a coding bootcamp, learn JavaScript, React, Angular, whatever, right? But non-technical, right? To get into maybe you want to get in and see, how things work. You can go BA or you can go product owner.
Thank you for that. That's definitely a very good way to go about it. I think it was Evelyn. I saw her hand up, but I don't see her anymore. Okay, so I see one, Esele. If you want to unmute yourself, we can quickly take your question.
Okay, good evening, everybody. So I'm in Nigeria now, and trying to transition to Canada. I'm a business development officer in a bank, but I think I'm applying to study for business analysis. So it's like a new angle to everything. I actually don't know where I'm headed for, but I want to just delve into it because I like what I see. I watch videos online, I listen to audios and all that, and I feel that okay, it will be the best path for me right now. because I like to speak, I like to talk. So I'm like, I'll definitely need a guide. That's just the basic thing now. For now, I'll need a guide because I like the last person that just spoke is quite young, but I am not. I'm a little bit older than that guy. My 40s, so I need a hand that will hold me and tell me, okay, this is the safest route to go through. Sorry, I'm in a noisy place.
Yeah, that's fine. I
I'm
think
enjoying.
I think I get your question.
And I have a brother there, so I think it's the best time to transition. Roommate. Yeah.
The best
So,
time, I didn't hear the last sentence there. The best time, what did he say?
He says he has a brother here, so he thinks it's the best time to transition.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, SLA is my childhood friend. I've known him for very, very many years, right? I'll answer part of his question because the question is mainly for you, Kes, right?
Yeah.
I'll say SLA, the 40-year-old boat, we are plenty in that WhatsApp group.
Exactly.
And for some of these roles that we're talking about, right, the white beards are actually, appreciated, right? So don't just take age as a barrier away, right? This is not Nigeria. Here there's a thing called age discrimination, and people try to not do that. So don't worry. Focus on what Kes is going to tell you right now and follow those steps, right? But if you're thinking about the fact that, hey, I might be too old, delete, just take that out of your consciousness. Remove it. Nobody even wants to know how old you are, by the way. So if you remove the white beards, they might, their guess is as good as anybody else's as to how old you are. So take the age out of it. Focus on, being able to get the skills, being able to, put yourself in that position, right, where you can go out and apply for those roles, right? So I'm sure Kes can give you more details as to how you can actually do it.
Yep. So, right, like Brumer rightly said, if anything, age is a good thing to have in this industry because you want to come across as a professional. You're coming in with years of experience from whatever background you've been doing. You have been working. You don't want to throw that away. So you want to come in as someone who has that experience. Sometimes personally, walking into rooms, I don't like the way I look. People, they've seen this profile. It looks beautiful. They're expecting, some solid person, and I just walk in and I'm like, are you the intern? I'm like, no, I'm not the intern. I just got good genes. So trust me, the beards, we want that. That's that aside. How do you transition? Just listening to all that we have said, I think that's why our program is really different. First of all, one thing that I focus on is small class sizes, because I know that, old age learning is not the same as, when you were 20 trying to learn something new. If you're in a class with 50 people, 60 people, and you're not that A+ student, it's very difficult for you to ask questions, very difficult for you to assimilate. So I really try to do the small class sizes where everybody is participating, people are asking questions. If you're that person who doesn't like to talk, we make sure you talk, we make sure you present. So I focus on that to get that, so you get that hands-on knowledge that you need. And then we work on projects. So you're not going into the organization blindly, you've actually done some of the things that you'll be doing as a BA once you get in. And then of course, like we have been hammering all day, mentorship is key. And that is what I offer. It is not easy, but I offer my time to my students because I know that is the differentiating factor. You can learn all you want, like Brume rightly said earlier on, you can learn all you want, you can read all the textbook, but if you don't have that person holding your hand to answer questions or to tell you, okay, in a real life setting, this is what you do, trust me, it's not gonna stick. So that mentorship, that hand holding, I do all of that. And I think that's why I'm really seeing a lot of good progress with my students and the people that are taking the program. Okay, so fill out the form and I'll be happy to speak with you one-on-one. And then we can just take the conversation from there, okay? I have some questions that came in and it's on paper. I'll just maybe read out a couple of them. We can answer that before we call it a day. Someone says, as a Scrum Master, how do I break into a product owner role? Not sure why you would want to do that. Is there something interesting you within the product ownership role if you're already a Scrum Master? And if so, Brume, do you want to provide one very quick tip on how
Okay.
to...
So one of the points that I mentioned in my slides, when I said strong university degree plus strong agile and scrum education, right? One of the certifications I have is a certified product owner, now, apart from that certification, right, I mentioned that I did a product management specialization with University of Alberta, right? Now, real life story, right? I started working in a company. A month later, product owner resigned and left, right? You know how long it takes to put up an advert, interview candidates, and get people, right, to come in. Then when they come in, they have to transition and understand the company. It takes about a month for people to even understand what they're doing. And no matter how experienced you are, right, there's always that time needed to learn, right? So as soon as it happened, right, my boss called me and said, hey, unfortunately, one of your product owners is gone. We're in the middle of the development of a really important feature, right? And we can't just leave these developers to work on their own, right? So one thing I mentioned while I was talking about the roles in a Scrum team, and that the product owner is a value maximizer. Now, you can't just have developers who are writing code, right? If your developers are just writing code, then you're not making use of them fully, okay? Somebody has to guide them as to what code they should write and how they should write the code, right? The product owner, as Victor said when he was talking to, he owns the product, like he's accountable for the product backlog and the product in general, right? So one thing that you have in a company, you have many voices. Everybody's asking for things, right? And I know a lot of these things sound very abstract, but if you think about any website you ever visit or any mobile app that you use, think about Facebook. Every time you open Facebook, there's something new. Now, if you go to your charts, you see that your charts are segmented by your regular charts, your marketplace, and something else, right? Like you keep seeing these changes, right? And if you think about it, have you ever wondered where these changes come from? Who decides what to change, right? Most of the time, yes, there are many asks from people around the company. You have marketing, you have finance, you have the tech people proper, right? You have the customers reviewing the app on the App Store, right? You have this information, all these things flying around, right? So somebody is going to sit down and say, hey, okay, I have to prioritize, right? What should my people work on now? In my company, we have what we call the RISE prioritization model, right? We look at the reach. How many people will this impact? We can't spend 6 months writing code for 10 people. Doesn't make sense, right? What's the impact going to be? Oh, we're going to only be getting $2,000 a month. After paying developers for 6 months, each one ends over 100K per year to write code for. No, it doesn't fly, right? The C is for confidence, right? How confident are we in the solution? There's a problem, but you're going to propose a solution, right? And most of the time is the product owner. So all these people that are asking you, somebody says, hey, I want users to be able to buy items, online, right? And there's some things I want to happen. If the person is in the middle of shopping and they go, I want you to send an email to the person to say, hey, you did not finish, buying this item, right? So they will ask you all these questions, right? Now, as a product owner, okay, this is where the whole transition from Scrum Master to product owner comes in. Scrum is a non-technical role. You can pull it off by being non-technical. When it comes to the role of the product owner, right, it is a bit technical. Why? Because sometimes you need to be able to, tell people no while they're asking you for something. So people always come with very outlandish requests, right? And as a strong product owner, before you even waste anybody's time, you can say, hey, that is not going to happen because nobody's going to spend 6 months writing the code to deploy that feature that you're asking for, right? So me, yes, I performed the role of the product owner, but why was I able to do it, right? And what did I learn after doing it? I did it for about 4 months, right? And so I developed a roadmap. I tried my best to facilitate communication with stakeholders, developers. There's what we call product discovery, right? We have an idea what it's going to be, but you have to work with designers and stakeholders to propose a solution, right? I did all of this, I had a timeline, but what happened was the moment a real product owner came into the picture, right? I saw firsthand, I'm like, crap. The first month when I started, I should have done this. I should have called this meeting. I should have done that. So I had a timeline that had to be pushed forward by a month, right? And at that point, I realized, hey, that my product owner certification, right? It tells 2% of the story, okay? The other 98% of the story is learned when you are working. So when you start working as a Scrum Master, most of the time you advise yourself that this transition to product owner that I thought, I could do easily, right, has to be pushed forward. I have to observe for a long time. I have to understand software architecture. I have to understand what the interfaces are. I even have to understand the programming language. Most product owners know 1 or 2 programming languages, right? So my advice to you, right, is yes, you can be a product owner. It depends on what the product is, okay? Every product has a domain, right? There's oil and gas, there is entertainment, there is financial services, there's supply chain. There's so many domains. If you're already strong in the domain, you probably might be able to, make a few mistakes, falter a bit, and then adjust, right? If you are coming from one domain into a different domain, I don't think you can start out as a product owner, right? So my advice to you, if you think you're going to want to transition in the future, right? And personally, I want to transition, right? So I'm a clear example of that, right? But I have already seen that the role of the product owner is something that requires time. Like you need time to step into it because, think about it. You have stakeholders, you have management, you have everybody plus customers looking to you, right, to provide value. And remember, agile teams are measured by the value that their finished product brings. We're measured only by working software. We're not measured by how hard we work, how many hours we spend in meetings, how many lines of code developers have written. It's by the value. So if as a product owner, you miss the point of delivering value, right, then you miss the entire point of the job. And to get to that point where you understand the value that you need to bring to the table, or to understand what request you should accept first before the next one, or to understand what you should not even entertain at all, it takes experience, right? So short answer, consider Scrum Master BA first. When you are when you've gotten that tech job, when you understand, how the framework functions, then you can decide if you still want to transition, right? I think when you get in, you might decide not to. Yeah.
I always, just to add to what you said, and amazing response. I always tell people, if you really want to, transition into a PO role, you must have that industry knowledge. You must have that business knowledge. So if you've been working in sales for the last 10 years, you probably live, eat, breathe sales. You understand the sales cycle. Then you can say, okay, I want to learn how to be a product owner within the sales industry. So you must, it's a must, quote unquote, have the business industry knowledge if you want to transition to a PO role. You can't be a fresh grad and say, I want to be a PO. No, it doesn't work. All right.
And something else, it's not a 9-to-5 job, the PO role, right? It's not, you sleep and eat the product.
And breathe it, you must
look at the analytics. You wake up in the morning, you're looking at analytics, you're looking at so many things. So it's not a 9-to-5 job. It's not like, okay, it's not a 9-to-5 job. Yeah.
Amazing. But it is I see a lot of fine lines these days between, PM, SM, project manager, Scrum Master. I would even see some product owner, Scrum Master. And I saw a comment earlier where someone said, if, they tell you you're a Scrum Master, but you're playing the role of a PO, run. I would say run, because it shouldn't be, but I see companies doing that these days, and it's not good. Even POBA, we should have 2 roles for all of these. Another quick one is, how do I gain confidence after, taking a course or learning theoretical knowledge? Again, I think we already answered that. You must take a program that has the hands-on portion, so you're actually working through some of the things you'll be doing in a real life setting. And of course, practice, right? Once you get the job, you just keep learning every day, keep increasing your knowledge, and you will be fine. All right.
Yeah, sorry. Can I just add to that one quickly? So for whoever that posed that question, so Boomer would have talked about, the daily stand-up. There's certain practices. So if once you have the training and you have the certification, look in your current work environment where you can start to apply, right? You may just go to team and say, hey guys, you know what? There's this thing as part of Scrum where we get together for 15 minutes every day. We don't have to do it every day. Maybe we do it 3 times a week, but start to look for within your job where you can start to apply some of the things you can learn and be intentional about applying them. And that's a good way for you, just so you don't forget what you learned, but also start to apply some of those things that you may have learned as well.
Perfect. All right. So many questions on the list here, but I don't think we can go through them. We are way past the time. And I want to thank those who are still on the call with us. Thank you for sticking all the way to the end. Thank you to the speakers for being here on a Saturday afternoon. Very well appreciated. A bottle on the house coming your way. And thanks to Jane, who has been just working through the chat, posting links and all of that. Thank you all, and have an amazing day. We will reach out to you if you filled out the form, and then we'll send a follow-up. The video will be posted so you can watch it again and again to get all the information that you need. So thanks, guys. Have a good one. Nice rest of your weekend.
Take care, everyone. Happy holidays.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye now.
Remember, you can do it, okay?
That's right. Thank you.